There, we're on.
On the air.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. Roll call. Who's got the sheet? You wanna go?
Val, she'll do the roll call. That way it stays consistent all the time.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yep.
Pedro Garcia,
Here.
Fred Dickey,
Here.
Myra Hernandez. Here. Cesar Garay,
Here.
John Villarreal,
Here.
Arturo Dominguez.
Here.
Alma Acevedo,
Here.
Rafael Dueñas, out. Julian Renowski, Joe Maldonado,
He's out. He's gonna be out.
Valeria Vela, myself, and then we have Priscilla Iglesias.
Yes.
And then we have somebody else.
Dulce Solano. She's part of Main Street. But as far as the members, we do have a quorum. So.
Yes.
Great. Well, Mr. Chairman, it's up to you to get the meeting going. How are you?
Okay, very good. Next item is the approval of the minutes. I don't know if y'all had a chance. If not, we'll give you a chance to review the minutes that we had last time as of March the 5th. I'm sorry. The minutes for February 6th. So do you all have them so y'all can review, or have y'all reviewed them?
Motion.
Give you all a chance to take a look at them.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Mayra makes a motion to approve.
Second.
Total seconds, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Very good. Let's see now.
Thank you.
Up for
Okay,
discussion, right?
next item is the introduction of our new committee member, Cesar Garay. Cesar, would you want to tell us about yourself and welcome to our EDAC committee?
Thank you. So I was appointed here by District 2, which is Mr. Vidal.
Mr. Who, I'm sorry?
Vidal?
Vidal?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Saragaray, Southern Distributing, been working for the Trinos for 50 plus years. A little bit of background, a business degree, which is focused pretty much in international business. Out of the Valley, which used to be PAM back in the day. A couple of committees I sit on. I sit on the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce. I'll sit on the marketing, Hispanic marketing committee for MetaCourse. So we meet 4 times a year, so on and so forth. That's pretty much it. Pretty much more focus on retail, marketing, so on and so forth. So glad to be part of this.
Well, welcome to the committee. We could use your expertise. Everyone here brings a lot to the table, so you'd be an important piece of what we do.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Ready to clap then?
If we have open door policy, you bring us here, we open the door.
And of course, we do need more economic development in the south, and that's where we need your eyes and ears. And
Should we quickly introduce ourselves to him since he's...
okay, John Villarreal, I'm with IBC Bank. I've been with the EDAC committee for over 8 years.
Great.
Fred Dickey, I'm just an old dude that's been hanging around, that comes appointed by the mayor.
You don't want to hire him.
We've run a couple of funeral homes. We have one here downtown, which is Nieto. We own our flagship, Fred Dickey Satellite, off of McPherson.
Hi, I'm Myra Hernandez. I work at Texas A&M International University and I've been with the committee for over 2 years.
Nice.
Arturo Dominguez, I'm a U.S. custom broker.
Techlo, you and I spoke earlier.
Yes.
Valerie, I'm his assistant, liaison for the economic.
I'm Acevedo. We have a business, Global Tooling Specialties. We import-export, mostly export tools and machinery.
Nice.
Very good. And we're missing 3 members.
3, yes.
3 members.
Julian, Joe, and Rafael.
So you'll get to meet them hopefully next time. Next item is presentation by Priscilla Iglesias, who's the Executive Director for Laredo Main Street. And also we have a member of the Laredo Main Street, Ms. Dulce Solano.
Mr. Chairman, let me just thank Priscilla for taking time out to come. I called her about 2 weeks ago or something like that to ask her to come by, and she was very gracious to accept our offer. Given the present company here, she knows that we can probably grill and ask hard questions. But thank you. Y'all are doing really solid work there, and I watch from afar what you do. And so, like I said, I'm again appreciative of you taking time out to come to visit us.
Of course. And so I know it says presentation, but I'd rather maybe this be kind of an open discussion on downtown, the state of downtown, and kind of the things that Main Street has been working on over the past couple of years. So just a little background on our organization for those of you that are not familiar with this. We are a nonprofit organization. We've been organized for 21 years. Going on 22 years. And so since the inception of Main Street, which actually first started as Streets of Laredo Urban Mall Association. And so that actually began through the idea, right, there was, downtown was starting to kind of slow down economically and in its vibrancy. And so a group of people got together and decided, hey, what can we start doing to attract business, to attract people? And so the Jambuzzi was born. And so once the Jambuzzi was born, that's kind of, okay, well, how can we continue to you know, get people to notice downtown and to come open up business in the Centro. And so throughout the years, then we became a accredited Main Street program. We have been an accredited Main Street program for 11 consecutive years. We're going on our 12th. Hopefully we will do it this year again. Confident in that. And so I've been with Main Street for 6 years, and I've been the executive director for 2.5 years. And so since I've been executive director, I've really tried to focus on partnerships with other organizations that are, you know, have the same kind of parallel goals as we might have. Maybe they were working on separate things, but we all kind of have the same vision for downtown and our community. So a lot of the initiatives that we work on is really about quality of life and how can we increase and make better the quality of life for our community members, not just in downtown, but for all of Laredo, right? So we find that many, you know, students and professionals leave Laredo, and most of the reasons, other than job pay, is quality of life. There's, you know, the downtown, there is vibrant, they have a lot of events, you know, there's a lot of things that are happening in the other cities that they're moving to. And so that's kind of also been a guiding point for us to, okay, well, how can we keep these professionals within our community to assist in the growth of our community? Well, one of that is quality of life. So we host the farmers market, we host the Jambuzzi, but we're involved in initiatives and advocacy for initiatives such as the development of the TERS. Our board members were really involved with that. I'm on the steering committee for the Inner City Housing Initiative. So we recognize that housing and programs and initiatives that assist with that are very important to the development of the downtown.
Which they have a meeting right now.
Yes.
Right? That's where Arnold's at right now. Thank you very much.
But you know, all of these factors are important. You know, retail, what is our market in downtown now? It's changed over the years. It seems that you know, we have a lot of entertainment businesses opening up along Iturbide Street. So you know, that's a market there, restaurants and bars. But how do we?
How many do y'all have in downtown?
How many what?
Bars and entertainment?
So right now we're counting about 22 establishments that are active and up and running and working. That number will grow shortly within the next couple of months. There's some businesses that are waiting to open.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to say that I'm sorry that Julian and Rafael are not here because they have a lot of interest in downtown, but monetary interest in downtown, and they really have a pulse, you know, on what they like and what they don't like. So I'm sorry they're not here to, you know, give you feedback.
I'm not sure which Rafael your
Dueñas Jr.
Dueñas Jr. I'm
Yeah.
not sure that I know him personally, but Julian, I mean, we have frequent conversations about
Good.
downtown and things like that. And so more than anything, you know, we kind of look at the comprehensive plan as kind of like a guiding tool for us, right? The city adopted it. It required a lot of engagement from our community, which that's like our community telling us what do we want to see. So now how are we going to deliver on those wants? And so there's a whole chapter in the comprehensive plan. It's chapter 2, and it starts talking about economic development on page 33 of chapter 2. I know this chapter very, very well. And so it talks about, you know, different economic development strategies that could be used to revitalize the downtown area. And so I'm glad to hear that there are committee members on this advisory committee that are very interested in downtown, because I want to stress the importance of having making sure that we're utilizing our economic development tools that One Main Street has assisted in advocating for, such as the TERS. How can we develop new ones, maybe incentives, maybe, you know, other districts that could be created to assist with the maintenance of whatever the TERS creates? Are we utilizing those to the maximum benefit that we could be utilizing them? And also start looking at different new initiatives and programs that maybe we haven't touched base on. So I've reached out to other Main Street cities in Texas and kind of asked them how do they work with their economic development departments and their EDCs and different programs that they have. And I mean, it goes hand in hand. For those of you that have not seen the Joe Minicozy presentation study that he did on Laredo, I encourage you to please take a look at that. That gives you concrete data on how much return on investment you would be receiving if you invested. And
Which is that?
Joe Minicozy. I believe you can find it.
He was here just about a month ago, right?
Yes.
And it was the second year in a row that he's been here.
Yeah, so the first year he actually presented at the Inner City Housing Summit, the first one that was hosted. And there he kind of gave a broad presentation of how downtowns are just big investment areas for a city. And so just investing in these just by our pure density and the infrastructure that is already in place, you know, just by that you'll get a larger return on investment per square footage of, you know, a parking lot, of a building, of a space, of a park, whatever. And so that was kind of a broad presentation. But then he came about a month ago, and from the past year, he's been working with a local group here, and I believe it's through Recode Laredo, if I'm not mistaken. They put together a local study. So it gives us, I mean, he goes through, you know, our appraisal, information data, local ordinances, how are we, you know, how is our code laid out?
Is that posted somewhere?
Yes, I believe it's on the Recode Laredo. If not, I can definitely send that over to
You send it to me and I can distribute it to the committee.
Okay, and we can, and I just encourage you all, it's very visual. You're able to see, you know, a Walmart versus one building in the area, and how, I mean, you can see just a return on investment. And so that's important to keep in mind when we're thinking about development for the future, right? Are we making the most of our resources that we have? And I mean, it's just so simple. Just think about other cities that you love, and why do you love it? And I can almost guarantee you it's going to be because their downtown is beautiful. And I mean, San Antonio, McAllen is now, you know, kind of on that on that road as well.
And-
El Paso,
Right.
my hometown.
Oh, you're from El Paso?
Yeah.
And Chuco?
Yeah. And it was all through the economic development and their municipal management district, joining forces and really making it part of their plan and making it a priority. Because I lived I'm originally from El Paso. I moved away. I grew up in Missouri. And then for my college, I went back to El Paso. And so when I was in college in El Paso, I saw their downtown was the same as Laredo's downtown. I mean, it was just,
It was getting to be a ghost town.
yeah.
I mean, it really was.
Yeah, it really was. And businesses were long-time businesses were starting to just leave the area.
Is that the
abandoned.
business model changed? Before it was really more of a wholesale area, right?
Yeah,
Before
yeah.
the
Well,
Chivera.
Yeah, and.
Which is similar to-
And they did some things, so sorry to interrupt you, sir, but I was gonna ask you a question, but, yeah, in El Paso, there was a couple of transformative things that happened, but it did take a lot of political will
Yes.
in order for it to make the first steps, and I know this wasn't the first thing that happened, but putting the baseball field downtown was
yeah.
really the game changer that really got everyone to notice. There was things already happening,
Yeah.
but once the baseball field came in,
Yeah.
But I wanted to say, Priscilla, maybe you can stress this, is that there's a lot of downtowns, like as you mentioned, that are really great. None of them were overnight successes.
No.
I mean, there hasn't been, before Frost finished their bank building in San Antonio last year, there hasn't been a new skyscraper in San Antonio built since 1985, right? No tall buildings since then, besides the Hyatt Hotel, right? Which is not, an office building or whatever, but so, it takes time, little by little. So I just wanted to mention that.
Just by that, right? We need to lay down the framework and all of that all takes time and it's all, going through the system and looking at how the codes and policies that we have in place right now are inhibiting us from redevelopment because that is also a huge thing that I know that the city is working on as well. However, that should ignite you and should say this is all the reason why we need this quick and we need to be working full speed ahead because it does take time. So if we, continue to just kind of, kind of take that type of route to it, it'll take us even longer to get to the end result that we
So
want.
let me ask you, so you said about the actual building codes downtown, bringing more residential. So where are we and what's the time frame to get there?
Okay, so through the Inner City Housing Initiative, and I would recommend also inviting Mr. Jose Ceballos if you guys have not. He
Yeah.
is the chair there.
And that's April 30th, by the way.
Yes,
that
the
event,
summit
right?
is April 30th. And so basically where we, from the last thing I know, that this committee put together or kind of like
We had a subcommittee.
draft. I'm sorry?
We had a subcommittee.
A subcommittee for
put
that,
together a
okay.
draft.
So they put together a draft of an incentive package. And I think that's a tool that we need to move forward with, only because we need to get developers and investors interested and kind of, okay, well, what can we do here? How are we gonna work together on this in this, area? And so, I don't know the update on where that stands here with the committee and how this committee was gonna move forward with that. But I think that that's a vital component to
I don't know the
bringing-
answer to that question.
okay.
But I'll find out.
So bringing residential spaces and mixed-use spaces in downtown. And so
I guess-
another portion of that, I'm sorry, is Recode Laredo, right? Is also getting the code in line
Okay.
with having residential spaces in, but it kind of needs to work hand in hand so that when the code is done, we have incentives, kind of already packaged and ready to go, and then we can, hit the ground running.
The recoding itself wouldn't incentivize people to actually do it.
Well, it could, right? Now that
Now that it's
making
an option.
Yeah,
you know?
that could in itself be an incentive for that, definitely. Mhm.
And so, just for clarity purposes, when you say recoding, you mean zoning?
Building code.
Building
Correct.
code, yeah, the land development code. So how can we use our buildings, mixed use purposes? So having commercial spaces on the bottom and maybe having some residential
Right
on
now,
the
you
top.
can't do that.
Has anybody here done the recode survey?
No.
I have.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, yeah. And they ask you like, what do you want more of? Walking trails, things like that. You know, it's very, I want to say generic, to where I wouldn't think that it would have these effects on what happens downtown. Or, I don't know, it was more like, do you want more of this? Do you want more of that? What do you think Laredo needs more? You know, granny flats in the backyards. And it was very interesting to me, not knowing how it all connects with things like the initiatives in downtown and things like that. But I haven't attended any of the events or the meetings. I know they had a few in a row last, I think it was last month.
Yeah, I think they're
At
having
the college and some other ones here and there.
Yeah, if you look up on Recode Laredo, they're on Facebook also. They're having these, I don't want to call them, they're not workshops, but they're like kind of little like,
Those charrettes or something?
yeah, like open
Meetings, like
spaces,
informative
yeah, that you
type.
can come and kind of talk about what you would like to see, kind of, you know, the same things.
Planning nights? Oh, okay.
And they give you information on how our code is now and how it can benefit you and how this initiative can benefit you. And so I think a lot of the things that we find downtown is that there is not policy telling us that you can or can't do things. So the code has been very outdated. So if somebody tries to begin the process, well, it's kind of like, well, it's not there, but it's not there either. So you know, it's
We have to
trying-
draft something now, so you gotta go back to the beginning.
Yeah, and then for an investor, somebody interested, even maybe not a large investor or redeveloper, but maybe somebody, I don't know, I own a building, let's say I own a building downtown, and hey, I want to do something like this, but now I gotta go, you know,
You have to
through
be the
city
pioneer.
policy, I gotta go to this department, I gotta go to the, and there's no streamlined process, so that's another thing.
Should be a one-stop shop.
We've talked about that here
Yeah.
at these meetings. I'm going to interrupt you, if I may. Going back to Main Street, it's Laredo Main Street, right?
Yes.
Not Main Street, okay, Laredo Main Street. Is some of within your organization's function to kind of do current business owners or residents of the downtown area, do they come to you with maybe ideas or gripe about things?
Yes.
Or and how do you, like, kind of what is your facility with the existing, or how do you facilitate the existing businesses? What is your support, if any, for that?
Yeah, of course. So what we started last year was these, last year they were monthly, this year they're gonna be every other month. And so what we have is a meeting space that stakeholders, businesses can come, and we discuss concerns, issues, not just local government related things, but also within their business. And we try to provide them with resources. We try to connect them to the departments that they need help. So we've actually been acting as the navigator for the person that has an idea, and because it's so difficult to go, I mean, they get sent to this department, then that department, and then everywhere. So we're kind of we'll do that for you, and then we'll get you where, you know, the information that you need to get. And so we're gonna have one in April. And I believe it's April 2nd. It's the first Thursday of that month, and I can send that all to everybody, the invite to you all, so you can attend.
Is that an
and kind of
evening
see.
thing, or
Yes,
is it-
it's at 6:30, and it'll be at Mile 1. And so it's a great space because, you know, the councilman just went to our February, Councilman Bali went to our February meeting, and, you know, we kind of told him, you know, out of the meetings that we had last year, these were the topics that were discussed that came up consistently. And so
How many times did the councilman for down here go to your meetings?
he went last year once and this year once. I believe he mentioned he would be at our April meeting. He wanted to give a presentation on the different downtown projects that he's working on the city end. But these meetings are great because we were able to kind of, you know, call our representative and tell him, you know, these were the things, and he let us know of some projects that maybe we were not aware of, the community was not aware of. So just even that opening that line of communication is great in those meetings. So that's kind of how we help facilitate and try to open up those lines of communication, and so it's not so difficult for stakeholders.
So these are outside your regular meetings, right?
Yeah, so
When are your regular meetings?
Main Street board meetings are every third Wednesday of the month. They are held in different locations, so if you're ever interested in attending one of those, please reach out to me, which I have cards I'll give everyone today. And then those are just an extra meeting that we hold so that stakeholders can come and we really focus on their needs and their wants.
Are stakeholders and the attendees of these every other month meetings, like the one at Mile One that you're gonna have, are these like paying members of your organization
No,
that have businesses, or just people that have businesses and have?
No, we don't have a membership
Okay.
within our organization, so all of our board members are volunteer-based board members. They don't pay dues, neither do these services are services that we provide for free for any business or stakeholder within the boundaries of Laredo Main Street.
Okay.
And you can find our boundaries on our website as well. So
That's neat to know.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna ask you mentioned 20 to 22 bars more or less, and a few more opening. Do you feel, just in, I don't know if you could answer officially, unofficially, but in your position, what you've seen in the last 2 years that you've been directing it, what else is needed besides housing? Let's just get away from housing. As far as businesses go, because what we talked about is how we could bring businesses downtown, but everybody has a different idea of what kind of a business might be needed downtown.
Yeah. So I think right off the bat is we need to do some type of market research. Okay. So what is I mean, the market has to tell us what the needs are. We can sit here and say we want restaurants, but that's not what. I mean, we can do 100 restaurants and they're all going to close down in the next 2 weeks. You know. So I think that's important to kind of highlight there. So that's one. Number two, I think that the initiatives that the It Street incentive package, which is kind of crazy. You see all the bars on Iturbide Street have opened up. However, none of them have participated in the incentive package program. And so a big reason of that was because they were not well informed in the process of that package, so they weren't able to take advantage of it. So there's another thing that we can I guess look at to make more efficient for somebody that wants to open up in downtown.
And the statement you're making it because you have data to back it up, or is it just the bar owners told you and we never used it?
No, there's data. I mean, there's permit. You could see how many permits were pulled out under the Iturbide Street. I don't know the exact number, but it's not. I can almost guarantee you.
There's been just a handful that have taken advantage of it, and that's because they knew someone that was in City Hall, or they knew somebody here, or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And so even with us, when we call and ask for the process, it changes. Well, I thought it was this, but it's that, and it kind of goes back and forth. But another thing I think that is huge for downtown is just an overall, I guess, marketing campaign, unified package for downtown. So, Main Street, everybody tries to do their separate things, and people see a lot of things happening downtown, but I think if we could really develop and maybe partner with, other groups to put this together, a cohesive plan.
Yeah.
And
I
so
agree with that
we
completely.
offer so many things that other parts of Laredo can't offer, walking distance, the mall, to entertainment, to restaurants, to hotels, all within a walking, mile radius. So if we could, put that in a cohesive plan to market.
Even museum, I mean, we really don't
we have arts, we have
a lot of times you go
museums.
to areas and you have museums here. I mean, we have the Museum of the Republic of the Rio Grande, but
And see, these are things that we're not showing off.
Exactly.
Right? These are beautiful, beautiful. Even just our building architecture. I
Yes.
mean, just that in and itself
there's
is.
some buildings
is,
that are beautiful.
I mean, gorgeous.
Yeah, no.
So I think that marketing that and packaging that for tourists and seeing if we can kind of get that together would help drastically.
That's like my number one thing. I mean, we always mention parking like a lot, but I think that that's the biggest thing. And I mentioned it before. Like, I'm a fan of dive bars, and I think of like when I go to Austin or when I've gone to Austin, I am a fan of dive bars. I've had a lot of things.
I've heard you say
I was just downtown on Saturday, and there was a metal festival between two completely different bars, and the crowd was going from one way to another. And these are metal people, and I guarantee you that majority of them were not Laredoans. At least the bands weren't. You know what I mean? So there was a metal music festival, and that marketing is put on the shoulders
That's
of
where
those businesses.
is it here or
On
not?
Saturday.
Here.
Yeah. But then I saw one of the pizza places already closed, but because we have like 5 pizza places, I'm exaggerating.
I know.
It's like pizza, but to go back to that, you know, that marketing is, a lot of that's put on the shoulders of the actual venues themselves. But one thing I was saying was that I always think, like, I can imagine, like, people that maybe grew up in Austin, it's like how people here, like, they reminisce of when they used to go to Laredo, right? Or, you know, me in San Diego was Tijuana when we were younger, you know, and then you can't keep going. Or some people, they're like, oh, you know, I want to go out, I want to go find a dive or see a local act, but I don't want to spend this much to go downtown Austin. Like, I wish there was somewhere I could go. And I think that there is, I mean, it's just an idea of me as a person, maybe empathy, not market research based, but I think that if we were to market in an Austin, if we were to market, I mean, people go to like Marfa and all these random places for one little quirky thing.
Yeah.
And Laredo's got entire, you know, I don't know how many block radius of a lot of quirky things. And we marketing that alone and investing and putting some energy into marketing it outside of Laredo.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a road trip kind of person. I would love to take a weekend to just go do something and stay at the Rialto or La Posada or whatever and just do it. So that being said, do you have communication with CVB to do that?
Yes,
And do they have a budget? Because it's usually when I see something, it's go shopping in Laredo.
Yeah, so our organization right now, we're putting together an updated strategic plan for our organization and the initiatives that we're going to be working on. So that's in process right now. And I think from what I've been seeing from the feedback of my board members has been to how, again, it's going back to, are we utilizing the resources that we have to the maximum benefit? And so that is a huge resource that I think that we haven't, and Main Street hasn't maybe reached out to enough to get that, but it is there. The director of the CVB is actually on our board. She's new to our board.
Oh, nice.
So we see that this is this could be a good you know, partnership, or you know, a good fit, you know, to kind of start putting that in there. And so yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that marketing is, I mean, you can have nothing and just market that and people will go. I mean, you see how Marfa has grown. I mean, it's literally like a desert place, and now people are like all for it, you know. So I'm not saying we're that or anything, but we have valuable pieces in our downtown that we haven't shown.
Well, like San Antonio's got the Mercado. I mean, we had the Mercado, but why? I mean, we got It Street, but I mean, we don't really have a Mercado. I mean, we're right on the border.
Yeah.
We have a real river. We don't have.
And there's people that remember going to Laredo, because I'm old as dirt, and they don't want to go anymore, but why don't we could rebuild some of that. We
Recreate it
could have
over
a
here.
Met
I've heard that a lot.
downtown, you know?
Just a question, do we have an influencer on our marketing team here at the city?
A what?
It's
Influencer.
not.
No, I don't think so.
We have the hashtag Hola Laredo, which was created by public
I know that
opinion.
at least one of my staff members is an influencer for this, for personal reasons, but here in the city. But I think that may be something vital, because you're talking about Marfa. Right now, at least personally, and at least the 20 plus people that I work with, we go to social media and check what's trendy by influencers, and usually it's their live in their cities,
Right.
marketing their city and the new programs. You see it, they do a promo sell, because you
No,
can
I
do
can
promos
tell
on
you that.
Instagram.
Right.
Done.
And spring break's coming up.
The answer to that is no, because the city hall itself, our public information folks are being directed by the city council and the city managers, and they focus on like your bare bones, stuff that, sending out press release announcements,
PSAs.
closures, that kind of stuff.
Your old market.
Our CVB folks, they're on social media in a different way, and they do post things on Instagram. I've seen on Facebook, right, about tourism and visiting certain spots. But going back to the marketing thing, and your idea of, you can slice this all kind of ways, I think, right?
Yeah.
And for instance, one could say, well, you can capitalize on Laredo's history, right? Right, as a draw, right, and make sure they include get on certain maps, right, like the Texas Historical Commission, Texas Highways, right, and those folks to try to lift up Laredo to highlight to other parts of the state. And, you know, one thing that Laredo is to Dallas and Fort Worth and Houston, which if you combine them, is about 11 or 12 million people. We're a direct flight from both of those places. So if you want to come to Laredo and you're a history buff, there's got to be some among those 12 million people, and they can spend the weekend downtown and do this or that. But like I said, that's just one slide. There's all kind of ways. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, and that's exactly it, right? I
Right.
mean, our history just in and itself is one whole animal that we could tackle, right? There's the arts and entertainment that you just talked about. I mean, there's heavy metal things happening.
Yes.
We don't, we're not.
We've had the
Yes,
Jamboozy.
more heavy metal. No, I'm
Why,
just
why
kidding.
don't we have something?
Did you get color here?
Like Sanction's got a venue, you know, not so much a Jamboozy, but a Tejano festival. We could have a Rio festival, you know, and that's germane to our culture.
Did the piano bar open up yet?
No, not yet.
I was just thinking about that issue. I'm like, I wonder if
The accordion
people
bar.
love this.
But, so I mean, it kind of goes back to kind of how Main Street, I mean, we have these discussions every day. So, we can come up with a billion events, and it's gonna bring someone here for one night, and then they go back, and then, oh, well, it's still vacant buildings, and it's still this, and it's still that. So we always gotta go back to kind of the core of the issues that are happening in our downtown. And I
So let
think-
me ask you, there was like 100 vacant buildings, is that still?
Yes, so.
Is it getting worse? Is it stabilizing? Is it getting better as far as vacancies downtown?
What we're seeing is vacancies a lot in the retail end, so a lot of the retail small businesses are leaving, and that is, you know, the wholesale type of businesses that you would see downtown before. We're seeing an increase in, you know, that entertainment restaurant type of business. And so we all go back to, okay, how are we going to sustain these businesses? Because like the restaurant businesses are only open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday because they cannot open during the week, during the day. I mean, it's just not
They're
sustainable
like
for
late
them
night
right now.
eateries. Now I wouldn't call them full-blown restaurants, but I think that, you know, like with Siete Banderas, they were a restaurant, but there was nothing else really around, and
To
now they
support
converted
it.
to a bar only. But now something like Siete Banderas, if they would have had the restaurant with as many bars are there, maybe that would be more sustainable for them, because if you think about when you want to go out for dinner and drinks, you want to have dinner on Del Mar and then go have drinks downtown. But
No.
if you could show up for 8, 9 o'clock, have your dinner, and then stay out for a few drinks or whatever, you know, now it makes more sense to have more actual restaurants. you
And
know.
then again, but it goes back to people that are coming for that are coming on a Friday, Thursday, Saturday. How are we going to sustain these businesses on a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday,
Yes.
Wednesday?
Not to
And-
mention that those businesses are notoriously hard to make, right? You know, to
Yeah.
sustain.
Restaurants are
Right,
like
right.
really hard.
It all goes to
Right.
the young people who do want to move downtown is to recoding, so and make it an incentive for there's several beautiful buildings, and I asked one of the owners, says, why don't you? He says, hell no, you know what all the hoops I've got to jump in, that's the attitude.
Yeah. And that's what we get, you know, it's like, oh, I'm not even going to touch it because it's
Well, yeah, like,
it's a lot.
What about the homeless?
What about
Has that been brought up?
They're at Brody Plaza.
They are.
So again,
Bethany House.
Yeah,
That area.
so of course that's a concern, right? You go down to 6th Street, and what's right after 6th Street is their Bethany House, right? I'm not sure
That's
what
how
it's
San
called there,
Diego
but
was too. for
and
this
so
season.
a lot of ways that you can make people feel more safe. There's homeless, and then there's a perception of safety, and then there's actual data to tell us if it's safe or not. So what is a perception? The perception is that downtown is not safe. Okay, so what can assist with that perception? Lighting. If it's too dark in the area, people just automatically feel unsafe, whether the data proves it or not.
Police presence.
Well,
Yes, police presence.
along that line, I mean, parking, did you have issues parking when you went down?
I looked out, but I went kind of early. I got there probably right before 10:30, which is kind of early for
So-
downtown.
So then that's kind of like I'm just gonna finish on the security lighting thing. So that's one whole thing but there's again another economic development tool that involves safety and security and partnerships with the police department and at our last meeting, downtown business meeting, of course, security is always one of the topics, and lighting. And so we had PD kind of come and tell us, you know, what they're working on. They're going to have a substation downtown, and also the councilman Bali also let us know about a project with AEP that he's working on. So,
Correct.
and then so when it comes to parking, I mean, that's a whole another animal, right? There was a downtown parking study that was done, and within that study, it talks about we don't need to build more parking and we don't need to have more parking. But the perception is that there's no parking. Why do people have that perception? Because there's no signage for them to know where the parking is. There's no signage or one-way streets. They find a parking lot, then they gotta go all the way around by the time they get back.
Is it
There's
dark?
no
And like you
parking.
said, the
San
lights
There's no
Antonio, but
lighting.
San Antonio's the same thing, though. You go, if you miss a
Yeah.
parking garage, if you're going to Majestic, you gotta go all the way back around.
And so it links to, a lot of people like to say, well, we go to San Antonio and we park 2 blocks, 3 blocks away and we don't mind. Well, why don't you mind? It's because the walkability, the streetscapes. You're not focused on the
Right.
2 blocks that you're walking. You're focused on the beautiful building. You're focused on the beautiful sidewalks.
Well, I'm
And
focused on
so-
predators, but
It goes back.
You know,
it
it's-
goes back.
but
to,
I've parked very far. I've parked very far and comfortably far. I mean, I'm okay with it. I'm a confident person, but this last time I parked
Especially
maybe
with
3
large
blocks out
hair,
of the way.
right?
How many, how far?
Well, maybe 3. I parked along the church, right in front of El Mesón, to get to where I was going, which is very dark,
It is.
and there wasn't any there. When I was going and doing my turns to get there, there was about 4 or 5 cops on bikes that I went by, all in a cluster, going down the road. I had to pull over and wait for them to go. But there's other times that I've gone, and I've had to park significantly far. And there's just closed, shops. There's not really
Well,
anything going on. I mean, the lighting's okay and things like that, and I try to be as alert as I can. I make it a point to be alert. But I'm not everybody. I'm an exception to a lot of the case, and I
You're a little bit more
have like
adventurous,
coworkers.
yeah.
I studied
Yeah.
self-defense, but my coworker, she doesn't like it. She hasn't liked it, and walking in a group of females to another establishment, one or another, she has been uncomfortable. So everybody's different. So some of these, it is perception, but some of it might even be like, a real threat. But I wanna, because we're running on at a time. I think that basically with every the notes I got from you, we think a lot alike. But one thing you mentioned was the inner city housing initiative. And since I've been on this committee, I believe the subcommittee had written it and created it, but I don't know that I've been on a meeting where we've actually voted on it. So I think an action item for us to support you would be to look at that, and if not, vote on it
Okay.
or continue to modify it until we're comfortable enough
Well,
to pass it.
let me say that, I don't know, the 7 months I've been here, like, that's never been brought up, right?
The inner city housing? Yeah, that's why we wanted to go
So-
back to the pending.
So what, we're gonna have to somehow coordinate that with what's being done already by the inner city housing folks, and they're meeting today for their last meeting before they, and that's where Arnold is.
That's probably where Julian is. honestly.
So
Julian.
he's there. But could I just interrupt real quick, because you're right, we are running out of time. Can we just ask, Mr. Chairman, can we ask Mara about TAMU students? Do they come downtown? Do they talk about downtown at all? Do you have any feel of what they say?
Yes, the few students that do come to downtown do come, parking is usually one of the concerns. And pretty much the fact that there's nothing to do nothing to do, that's not the right term, it's really, they want more of what's going on.
Right.
So, and then it goes back to marketing, right? There's so many things happening that sometimes I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that happened. If we were to be able to create some type of program that we could really create a cohesive plan for that, I think would
And
answer
internet
some of those.
access. That's one of the things that
That's
they
one of the things that
Yes.
one of the things
Council
that
brought
they
up his
do
first meeting. that
talk a lot about
broadband.
is
Yeah,
like
broadband.
the internet is just nightmare downtown. And-
Yeah, we live
which
with
is
it here,
interesting, like,
actually.
you go to the part, we're like, yeah, but we're live
Yeah.
streaming and it doesn't work.
Yeah, and
Got it. That's free marketing, by the
Well,
way.
we can take up this conversation in about 10 minutes to your heart's content, but we do have to get a couple of items
Let
in
me
real
just
quick before we
mention
do that.
one thing,
Go ahead.
as far as the parking, there's that, just west of Siete Banderas, there's that
That
parking
closes at
space.
7 o'clock.
Huh,
that
I
closes.
understand, so that one I think belongs to the church, but if they can partnership with the city, maybe do some,
They don't wanna do it.
multi-story,
They don't wanna do it.
multi-story,
They don't?
also
No.
good La
There's
Posada.
also the
Why?
block that has the
That's
dedicated
why.
bike lane. I don't remember the name, but when you get off the bridge, there's a whole entire convent, yeah, that entire street has a dedicated bike lane and absolutely zero parking is allowed. And I think at some point, when the nightlife kicks in, I don't know how many bikes are roaming around, and if maybe that's something that could be
Not
considered
many,
as
right?
well.
And then
No, and if it is, you're not gonna wanna facilitate that kind of traffic, that's where the creepy stuff comes
Yes,
in.
Has they ever given you a reason why?
Yes, I think Julian may have said it, or somebody, or Rafa had said it earlier, that they had spoken to the church, and they didn't want the hassle of having people that are going to party downtown, like litter up their lot or whatever, something along those lines.
That could be-
But I don't want to speak for them, because I don't
No,
know
you
what they
can't, I
said, but
understand.
there was
But I
something
can
along
sure
those
say
lines.
something.
But,
About
Mr.
it.
Chairman, can we hit those other two items real quick?
If
And-
Okay.
I could,
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to say, the conversation here was great, and if at any point you all would like for me to come and speak on anything or give you my input as far as, the downtown is concerned, I'm always open and always willing to come down, and I invite you guys to our meetings as well, so you guys can visually, because it has a different impact when you see somebody that has put in their last dollar into their business and is struggling just to open their doors 6 months later, and they're gonna give up, and they're on their breaking point where they're like, I need to get out, or I need to move this forward. So it's urgent that a committee like this kind of start thinking about what redevelopment in downtown is.
How
How
far
important it
does
is.
downtown go? What are the boundaries for?
Oh,
Main
no,
Street?
you're gonna start up a fight.
No, I'm just
I'm
asking.
joking, I'm joking.
So
Like Washington.
Yeah, our Main Street boundaries is Santa Ursula to Santa Maria, and
Okay.
then all the way from the river up to Matamoros. However, that's just Main Street boundaries. So when we're talking about downtown and inner city, I mean
That's probably, that's
it's-
the real core downtown.
yeah, and it's a lot of the. It doesn't include like the government's facilities that we have. So,
We got too many.
there's-
We
but,
should have other stuff.
but yeah, so downtown goes up pretty. I would say even. I mean, the inner city is large, but downtown I would say probably even up to Scott Street,
Has
St.
ever-
Peter's and.
St. Peter's
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Has anybody thought about making that like a King William district in San Antonio where
Well,
they,
St. Peter's would be beautiful.
all that area, I mean, you
There's
can
Harrison.
home by home. I know
think
there's
there's been
3,
talks
but
about
you
it.
got a lot more.
On the essence of time, Mr. Gotti, I don't know, we haven't let you.
Yeah.
Maybe
I warned you beforehand.
tell us what you think, or,
Is there any associations that you guys work with downtown? I think there's like a bar one.
There's
Is
a
there?
bar.
So actually, Main Street
Those are the
helped
ones you like,
facilitate
right?
that group. So we saw the growth of entertainment businesses along Iturbide Street, and so automatically was like a cohesive marketing plan for these guys so that they can be successful. So we, along with other downtown advocates, help facilitate meetings. So Main Street actually helps facilitate meetings for them. And they all get together, they make decisions on their own. We just help, put the meetings together, notes together for them, and they create events. So they're actually hosting this year downtown bar crawls. And the first one's gonna be in St. Patrick's Day. They're awesome, they're really cool.
Ooh,
They have
really?
Is it gonna be the actual
specials.
Tuesday,
Yes.
or is it gonna be the
No,
weekend
it's gonna
before?
be the Saturday.
That's what they do.
It's gonna be
weekend
the
before.
Saturday. And so, and then they're gonna host 4 more throughout the year. 4th of July, Cinco de Mayo, Halloween, and then the St. Patrick's Day one.
I know that my daughter, when she comes down, she's 26, her boyfriend, they, downtown, it's like, hey, let's go down, they get excited.
Yeah, it's fun. And so, but yeah, so that's another kind of a little initiative and program that Main Street helped assist with, because we saw the need to organize the group and have them be successful, you know, better united than separate.
We had condos
Thank
downtown,
you,
you know,
Priscilla.
above a lot of these beautiful historic buildings, you know.
Where?
On the map.
You know, like a lot of these.
No, what
recent-
city?
Here, if we,
Oh, if we-
here.
I'm gonna
And
pass
if,
around this, you already have my,
Yes.
my business card, so my cell phone is on there, my email is on there. Anytime you all have questions or anything, then no, I don't know if you have.
I'm like, you're teaming, I have it, I have it.
Mr. Garcia, you went up. I know, yes, Mr. Time, you went up.
Yes, sir. You want to go on to the next item, Mr. Chairman? You want to call that?
Yeah, next item, updates on Economic Development Director Teculo Garcia on 280 guidelines and truck parking lots.
Okay, so we don't have time for full-on discussions about this, so I deliberately didn't know. I have been working on these two items. I've been working with our subcommittee that involve Mr. Dominguez and Rafa, and then also on the 380 agreements with you, Mr. Chairman, and Julian and others. On the 380, I haven't been able to draw up the first draft like I thought I would be able to do by this time, mainly because, you know, we can blame Mayor Sines on this, Fred.
Yes.
I've had to fill in for him a few times, you know, to out of town, and it's been taking me longer to do this than I thought. But we're on the right track. I've gotten some really good feedback from John and Julian, and we've had meetings, and they had meetings on their own, so I think we're on the right track for that. It's just a matter of putting a first document together for y'all to look at.
The main thing with us is that, looking at, I think we looked at one, which was Fort Worth.
Fort Worth.
So no, let's look at several.
Yeah, we looked at
and
several.
We like, I mean,
Bits and pieces of a
like
lot
El
of them.
Paso and Corpus were about the same.
Yeah.
And like today, I spoke to one of my clients, they're doing a 100,000 square foot warehouse in FAR, but they're getting it 380 over there,
Mhm.
you know. So I said, hey, well, bring us you might have it, the Hidalgo County 380 guideline agreement.
Well, FAR probably did it on their own if it was in FAR, and so FAR's notorious for giving away everything. I mean, they got a Costco there, and they gave them like a 10-year no retail sales tax, or they were going to rebate them all, 10-year property tax abatement, right? And then they gave them the land.
Get to
So,
typing, Theklo.
So I'm not into, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit more conservative than that. I don't want to give away that much.
Well,
you
what's
know?
their return, what's the return on their investment?
Well,
Costco.
see, I don't know. They have Costco, but we don't know how Costco's performing. So we'll see. But nevertheless, but yeah, no point well taken. So I'm working on that, and then the other part is the truck lot and situation, and I want to thank Arturo for meeting with me on that and giving me a lot of insight. And he'll probably tell you there's a real easy answer to it, right? No, there's not an easy answer to it. It's much more complicated than when someone says, hey, we'll just build some lots and people will go park there, right? And Cesar and I had that conversation this morning, we were talking, and it's not that simple. However, some early conclusions I've been able to draw, which I don't know will be the final ones, but I think that number one is that the city doesn't need to be in the business of building parking lots and running them for truckers. I think there should be some sort of public-private partnership or economic incentive agreement in order for that to happen. You know, like I said earlier, we build parks and bust bad guys and that kind of stuff. We're not a truck parking lot builder. However, two private entities have come forward and they've said, hey, look, we understand you want to do this. We're willing to do the parking lot, and if you can incentivize it for us in terms of like a 380 or something like that, so it can make it more feasible for us to do so. So I think that's a great solution. I think it might work as a pilot to understand, like if we do these two and they take on some of the risk and we help them mitigate that risk with some economic development incentives, that let's see how they perform. And if they do well, maybe we can do more. If they don't do well, then we need to go back to the drawing board and maybe do a better market study to see what it would take to get trucks off the street.
Theklo,
Yes, ma'am.
is the problem that needs to have a solution? Did you guys clarify my question of, is it the guys that, or, you know, not the guys, and the people that live in the Mines Road area that might be starting their trucks at 3 a.m., is that the concern? Or is it the the traffic backed up, or is it a combination? Because I know that was a
Yeah,
big
no, that's a good- no,
what's
it's a
our
good point.
target problem to solve?
Well, that's what makes the question complicated, to be honest with you. Because it's like doing anything. If you're gonna create a product to sell it, like we are parking lots, you know, you have to ask those questions. Okay, who's my customer? You know, what's their price point gonna be? What are we trying to do, right? And those folks that are parking their trucks and parking in neighborhoods and leaving them on, I mean, that might be a more anecdotal or smaller issue with that trucker. I mean, I used to have a trucker who would do that in my neighborhood in McAllen, and I would call the cops, and then they would tell us that you can't park your vehicle in this neighborhood, and they move them along. But
It's the enforcement part.
right, that's the other part that I was just gonna mention, is the
And,
enforcement, right? Are we
the
doing that? So
educating.
even before the lots are built, you know, we need to do enforcement. But on the other hand, if we don't have viable places for these folks to go, you know, they're gonna fight moving from their neighborhoods. Or they can say, well, I live right here, that's why I have my truck on, because I mean, I'm gonna leave. So, I mean,
Yeah, but
there,
they're
I
not
don't,
allowed
what
to
I'm saying
park
is, there's
their
not an
trucks
easy
there.
answer to your question, but I mean, I appreciate it, I just don't know the answer to it.
And yeah, I was hoping that when we had our subcommittee meeting, that would be one of the things that we would clarify, just know where to move forward.
Well, but the thing is that if we have 15,000 trucks a day that are crossing back and forth on other bridges, and then we have our long haulers coming in and waiting to pick up loads, and the drayage guys going back and forth, right? It makes for a tremendous amount of traffic, right? So will parking lots be the answer for all those problems? No, they won't.
So
There's just no way.
you just mentioned with that public-private partnership, or again, you mentioned in chapter 380. So I don't know, I know it's not an action item, but me personally as a person, if you need me to speak to city council members and let them know that the priority needs to be in the 380s and that it does need to be a private sector led type thing, and they have the means. I mean, if you know, you mentioned the two companies that are already doing it on the
Yeah.
private sector side. I'm sure they're putting the money into the research and
The-
to make sure.
Yeah, these two groups, and I don't mind telling you, one is the Kraus group, who already had plans to build a truck area called
Is that
Truck
the
Town.
Pinnacle?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pinnacle, right? And their ideas were actually kind of interesting. They had more of a higher end kind of a truck stop with, you know, green space and a dog run and, you know, all that kind of stuff, which is great. And so they're figuring that those kind of amenities would make it a better pay model, right? So if you want to stay there, you're going to pay a higher price because you're going to have those kind of things, bathrooms and lighting and all that stuff. The other group, which I won't mention yet because it's not kind of unsure yet, is they're thinking more of just an asphalt lot where that's bare bones and people can store their stuff and wait to get called. So there's two different models, and I kind of like that because now let's see which one might work better, and you know, that kind
But
of
like the
thing.
second one, how does that differ from a truck stop?
Well, I mean, like a truck stop, like you're talking about like a Love's or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
there's, what, 2 truck stops, maybe another one on Mines Road?
Well, I mean, the second one is just gonna be like what you would think of a trailer lot, right? I don't think they're thinking bathrooms, they might, but that would be like the only thing that they would do. They're not gonna fuel, they're not gonna, you know, provide any other amenity. It's just, hey, if you wanna wait here for several hours while you're gonna get called, you can wait here, right? There's another issue that Cesar brought up, which was really important, I thought, this morning, sorry, I'll do it 1 second, is that a lot of guys do need to park for a while, but where they park, they can't get from there to the Stripes or to Walmart or wherever they need to go for that short period of time and then get back to their vehicle. So that's another issue that we would think about. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay, but you have 60,000 trailers roaming Mines Road daily, okay? And so they did the Riverbank Road for cars to move from Flexa Lane all the way to Killam Road and Mines Road. And so all of a sudden, these people are hit with the warehousing that are there, that cannot offload, and have lines of trucks there, and so they're kind of trying to get away from the trucks, and an accident can happen.
And
That's one of the
Yeah.
biggest issues, is the trucks parked where cars are roaming now, and they don't want to get hit, they don't want accidents, and they're trying to, if you cannot offload them when they get there, then send them somewhere where they can be parked before you can offload them. And so you need some kind of technology that you can call them up and say,
Right.
"Hey, come on, we're gonna offload you now." And so they're not parked there in those streets.
They meaning
The industry.
actual warehouses.
The warehouses.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't take as much as you're taking, you gotta find a place to put them because you're blocking the streets. And this is an alternative for Mines Road, I think. That's where we can start. That's what we suggested, that's should be the pilot one. And take it from there. And if it works, then you take it to other industrial parks that are having that type of issues. I mean, if it's just trucks, they don't have issues, no? But that particular road has issues.
There's already some folks in industry who have gone to that sort of, restaurant model, if you will, or even like an Uber model, however you want to look at it, is where, an independent trucker or even an industry, trucker with Schneider or whomever, Warner, they're waiting somewhere and they'll get buzzed that, hey, you're up next. Like, don't wait in the street, for 3 hours. Go wait over here. You're not going to lose your place in line, and then we'll call you when it's your turn, right? I think Hunt is doing a more higher tech version. They're doing where drivers can bid for loads. So if they'll post a load and they'll say, okay, who wants it? And you put your bid, and then you get it and you go pick it up. But let me just say also, in that area that you're talking about, that's the worst area, obviously, I at least in my mind. And United is building a middle school back there.
Very worse.
In addition to that, so you're talking about 7th and 8th grade football games, cheerleader camps,
Where's
bands,
that?
all that stuff.
Where are they building the middle school?
Back on what's the name of the road again? The River Road?
Riverbank.
Is it a ghetto road? They have a piece of property there.
Yeah, well,
Where
this is
they do
the one that,
transportation.
the ghetto's like
center.
this one is.
Yeah.
The riverbank.
So, I'm gonna, talk to our legal folks to see if I have to do a request for proposals, or because they already own the property and they were thinking of doing something of that nature, that we can offer them an incentives package without us having to go out for a request for proposals. Because some people might say, hey, well, I was thinking of doing that too, why don't you offer me that? So we're gonna try to be fair about that, but also try to move quickly. So I'll come back again to the committee to let you know where we go with that, but those folks also have to let me know what their intentions are in terms of a letter, and then we'll talk to the city management and legal about what they're, about whether we can do that project or not. So anyway, I'll get back to you on that. But thank you for your
I don't want you
offer.
to feel rushed or anything like that, because in my opinion, in my limited amount of information and probably more ignorance than anything, I think that's just what the city has always done. And part of you being here is to avoid that
Avoid which
continuation. Rushing through things because somebody has a problem with something, or somebody thinks it's a good idea
Right.
without doing all the research behind it. Because something like RFPs, if you were to throw that out anytime in the next 6 months, I think that would be too premature. But that's just my 2 cents, and I guess it's part of why I get to sit here. But no, honestly, I just, with private sector already going for it, next week's DC, all the things that they want to do with the World Trade Bridge, the FAST, the grant, all these other things that everybody's working on, it just makes sense to really, look at things and then.
I mean, if we had all the time in the world, and we wouldn't do a pilot program, I would do what Priscilla was suggesting for downtown. I mean, you would have to really do a study, and you have to look at truck movements, you have to figure out what the price point would be, you have to figure out what our enforcement has been, which has been lax. Figure out all those things, right, and then do it. But then you would do it a lot, not anytime soon. I mean, I know, Councilman Allgeld wanted to do it, he says, well, you got 60 days, and I was like, well, give me 90, so we got 90 to report back to him. That doesn't mean we're gonna do anything in 90 days, but we at least get back to him in 90 days.
If you could let me know ahead of time, I'll be there. My son I think he's on track, so I think the meets are Monday, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I'll
But yeah, let
for
me
sure.
know, and that's the other thing too, is that maybe it doesn't have to be an expensive study.
Yeah.
Take advantage, the city is a member of NASCO, and NASCO has a Texas A&M Transportation Institute on their board. And
Yeah.
there's academics behind wanting to do studies on these types of things and understanding the traffic. And capitalize on the laurel we always rest on, that we are the #1 land port.
Well, I think that we
Things
can,
like
I
that.
think we can do that simultaneously with the 2 pilot
Yeah.
programs that we do, but, and we'll see, but I'll keep you in the loop for sure on all those things.
Please do, because
Okay.
it's no, was it sweat off my back.
Mr. Chairman, now we're to number 4, and just, I've put that out there because just in case we missed anything that someone wanted to bring up for next meeting. If
Is
anyone
there
had that.
anything that y'all want?
I'm not gonna be here, but I would, I would like to know if there's any more movement on, number 1, on this, conference center they wanted to build it, that even though it was voted down.
Okay.
I'd like to know, and then number 2, that's okay.
So you want, but you
Oh,
want,
there's a guy named is Roberto, I think it's Martinez, who is, he's an engineer with the Tech Stop. Tell us what they've got going on and what they expect and when.
okay, so you want.
There's a lot going on with them,
Yeah.
and I don't think anybody here would know. I think we all need to know.
Okay,
Actually,
yep,
you know
we're
what,
happy
they
to do that.
presented last week, their stuff presented last week at Laredo Rotary. And they do have a lot of
They
stuff.
got
They do,
lots
they
of, they
do.
got funded.
I'll be happy to do that.
And they were funded for, I think, 100% of the
Yeah.
Well,
projects.
yeah, that's what
With the
we,
exception of the new one.
Oh,
coming
that's
up.
what we went up to get the 220 million back in September.
Yeah.
So that's part of all the different things, but yes,
If you do
good
that
idea.
for not next meeting, I've got a doctor's appointment, I've got
Ah,
to be
well,
there.
man, you just brought it up, man.
Well, can we do the one after that?
Yeah, sure, that's no problem.
On that note, with what Myra was mentioning about the influencers and things like
Yeah.
that, I know when you first came to us, your first meeting, you did mention that goal of getting that Wi-Fi, broadband and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't, I don't have any new information on it. However, it is an issue. In fact, I went to a P3 conference just last week. I'm gonna let y'all get out of here, but I went to a P3 conference, which is a public-private partnership conference, right? For those of you who are not that familiar with it, it's basically where can industry and the public sector meet to do projects together, right? Big projects. And that was a big part of the discussions, was how can you work with private industry to create, broadband for your city? And, I don't think there was any easy solutions. I mean, it's an expensive venture. We can start, I think, and just as a way to start it is, every public facility that we have, including parks, they should have Wi-Fi, right? And if you can do that, you're gonna create a lot of zones especially for kids. And we're a very undereducated city, that they can do their homework or finish their projects, because so much of the stuff is online based now, that they can use besides the library. But if they're at the park, at a baseball game, they can do their homework, right? If they're playing soccer, or if they're at Independence Hills with their parents walking, they can do stuff. So if we might be able to start there as a way. But if I were to suggest or spend time and resources in trying to get broadband in a much bigger area, it would have to start downtown.
I have one more thing, sorry, especially since Priscilla's still here.
Yep.
Last year, I missed it, but my coworker went, it was the PACE Authority. Are you guys familiar with that? PACE Authority? I think it's a nationwide thing, it's not just a city thing, but they came, I think Laredo EDC was promoting it. But it's, from my understanding, and I'll send you the latest email, it talks about their national conference, but it still has resources. But it's something along the lines that I think it's old historical buildings and turning them into like a green, like environmentally friendly or sound or something like that. There's all kinds of things behind it. And I never heard anything about it after the fact. But I'll send it to both of you guys. I'll send it to you too to see what it is. But it's something that they're trying to do on the state level.
Yes.
And these different counties or cities keep adopting things
You know
for
what?
it. There
Let's
seems to
put
be
down
resources.
let's get Arnold to do a quick briefing on that if you'd like one.
Okay.
If we have time for next time, because we have talked to the Texas PACE people about providing monies for those kind of things.
Okay.
It seems like a very worthwhile effort that's full of red tape.
Oh, okay.
But
Sounds like
but
that.
Arnold knows more about it than we do, so let him come and talk to y'all about it. And we have some of our folks involved at the city level on it already, at least in talking to the PACE people to see if we can do that here in Laredo.
Okay, and then it just seems like all this, it's more than just our committee, it's the historical, it's the arts and culture, it's the education sector. On one quick thing, when I was in 4th grade, the San Diego Unified School District, every 4th grade class spent a week in Old Town. And Old Town San Diego is a mix, it's the first
I've been there.
settlement. It's a mix of the Spanish colonial and like the, European American settler model. And it's just these restored houses turned into museums, turned into these little Pioneer Day experiences. And for 4th grade, we took a bus every day and spent it there. And if we're trying to, restore all these things, and these kids don't know. I explain to people what it means, the city under 7 flags. People, grown-ups that are from here, and people don't understand. So there's, again, it takes all these different pieces. We can't just put all this on our committee, or we can't start to take bites out of some arts and culture committees, meals. So we have to figure it out to where we could be more, we could collaborate.
On that note, thank you again for taking my call, number one.
Yes.
And I'll share this quick story. When I was asking her to come over here, and I was kind of trying to convince her. I don't think I needed to convince her, but she wanted to come. But she gave me like this little downtown test. And she said, well, do you really believe in downtown?
No, I said, but you do agree though, that investment in downtown is vital, right? But because it's important. I mean, I don't know that, it's been kind of like I don't want to say convincing game, but it's been kind of like a get on board with this, because it's not just, oh, we want a nice downtown. No, it can have a significant impact, economic impact to our city, and it can have tourism impact and international impact. So I mean, we are a great, unique city. I mean, one of the biggest inland ports, and Hispanic and culture and historic.
We might be the biggest port again after the coronavirus.
That's right.
On a plane,
But all that takes an investor to say, hey, I'm gonna get a return on my investment.
The investment needs to be made by the local population.
Yeah.
That's the first.
And that's where the incentivizing comes into play. If the incentivizing where there's a return on the investment. But anyway, we're running out of time. One last thing.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
One last thing. It's important, if you got agenda items, we don't have to wait until the very end. Valerie and Mr. Garcia are there. Send your agenda items. We might not get to all of them because sometimes we have, but
Do we have a time
encourage, like you mentioned, maybe we gotta
A
go
time
back some of the
Do we have a
previous
time limit?
issues.
An
hour, but we tend to go. But anyway, encourage everyone to send agenda items to Valerie and to Mr. Garcia.
Okay, it's important, Mr. Chairman, real quick before someone moves for adjournment, that we do stick to the agenda. I was just reminded by the city secretary's office that it's okay to have conversations in here, but if we don't stick to the agenda, we'd be in violation of the Open Meetings Act. And so we need to stick to the agenda as much as possible. So go ahead.
And one last thing is we gotta have with possible action, because we can have these presentations, but then if we can't take action, it just doesn't say anything.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
That's my bad. I should have probably mentioned that. Anyway, with that said, do I hear a motion for the dismissal of the meeting?
Motion.
Motion by Maida.
Okay.
Dominguez, all those in favor? Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Yes.